everyone, and this is a good one, and I'll let Wendy go first on this. When you think back on what it took to complete your first book and to get it to print, what would you do differently?
Oh, I would have chosen which one book to complete a little sooner if I could have. But to be honest, I needed to take the journey I did, as the writing, it was just so cathartic. And I just had a lot of past life energy that I needed to release, because I have found and worked with more than 70 of my past lives. So like Lori, yes, some of what I write is fiction, but it's certainly been inspired by my own memories coming through during past life regression and meditation and other types of sessions. So my writing, it just went all over the place when I was writing fiction, and I ended up with literally about 10 books were started. And so it just became very frustrating of what book do I go forward with, or what do I do with these short stories, because I've written fiction, nonfiction, and short stories. So that's, if I could have chosen that, a little bit sooner and just really focused on which book do I publish first, I think that would have helped me, because Regression Healing 1, it took 13 months from soup to nuts, which I'm pretty happy with, because it was my first book and first time to figure out that whole process. So that's one thing I can comment on. And I would have also put more cycles into figuring out how to build a mailing list a little bit sooner, because I don't have that piece down yet. So I just think it's something you just have to gather over time and just keep collecting email addresses from people who are interested in your work, have purchased your work, may be interested in your work, and then very respectfully, of course, and it's Washington state law too, giving them an option to opt out if they don't want to hear from you again. And certainly also not ever, selling or renting those emails, because none of us want to get a bunch of spam.
You mentioned taking 13 months to do Regression Healing 1. I spent a year doing my ebook about eBay, so I'm with you there. Sometimes that first one takes some time.
Right.
Lori, how about you? When you think back on what it took to complete your first book and get it in print, what would you do differently?
I honestly don't think I would do anything differently with my first book was my first book. It was my learning curve. It was me opening myself up to the world of publishing the book. It was me opening myself up to the public, period. So it was a process. It didn't take me as long as Wendy probably. I think my book, well, maybe it did. I think my book took me a year to put together because I was trying to compile things in the order. Actually, my first two books are how I opened up to the metaphysical, and it's my story, but in fiction. So if you read the first book, it ends off, and then the next book picks up where that book ends up. And so for me, it was more, like I said, a labor of love. I really wanted to write at that point, and I don't think I would do anything differently. I know that there are some people out there who probably feel like, oh, your first book, oh, you could probably redo it or, fix the mistakes that you didn't know about then. And I'm like, no, that was my learning book. And, I want it to be an example for other writers or ones that aspire to write, to kind of encourage them. There's a lot of people out there that have really good stories, but they're afraid to put it down because they don't think they're good enough. So I just want to encourage them.
Thank you, Lori. I would like to direct that question now toward you, Linda Bove.
Yeah. Well, I don't really regret anything. I mean, not that I haven't made any mistakes, because I have, but even with the mistakes, you learn. And one thing maybe what I could say is that I was always shy to share it because it was a little bit on the weird side. And I, like my friends on Facebook, I'm kind of shy to say, hey, I wrote a book, do you want to read it? And it took me a long time to do that, and I did. It's still hard on me too, even today, even though I did put it on Facebook, on my main Facebook and everything, and it went down pretty well, but that's one thing that I always found hard, and maybe I should have done that a long time ago. But besides that, everything else that I've done or that worked or didn't work or whatever, it's fine. I don't mind, and it's still my project, and it's still something. I don't feel that I'm a writer that has many books. I have this one book that's very close to my heart, and I believe it's good, and I'm just going to continue working on that book.
Well, best of luck with all of that. Continue on, and I like what you're doing, Linda. I want to, for our last question before we close out the show, and this is addressed to everyone, and I'm going to start with Wendy Rose Williams. In summary, what were some of the key lessons learned along the way, and the best advice you can give our listeners?
Oh, that's a great question, Rich. My best recommendations would be to be willing to seriously consider self-publishing versus not getting published or waiting years and just wasting a lot of energy trying to get an agent or a publishing house contract. I mean, I like Linda's approach of she's doing that on the back end because that's always an option. And to just sync up with your guides very closely and look at, is writing and publishing, is that really a major portion of your life path and your soul mission? If it is, ask your guides for help. They're going to be in perfect alignment with you on it because you will have chosen this before you were born. So ask for the contacts, ask for the doors to open if you know this is an important way you serve humanity. And work with a healer if necessary, because sharing your work publicly, that's going to bring up your stuff. I was relating to what Linda was saying about, feeling shy about it. It just can really stretch you out of your comfort zone. And we often have blocks in the area that we're just not aware of. So particularly if you write nonfiction or if you write an autobiography, and all of us have really done that in many, many flavors, even if it's presented as fiction. And I would recommend finding a writing partner or partners. Consider joining a writing group to trade tips, to build up your speed and efficiency. Certainly be a reader. You've got to read, quality writing to improve yourself. You may consider taking courses, etc. And don't let perfectionism be the enemy of getting some writing down, because haven't we all had those moments of flow? You're in the shower and you're getting all these great ideas, or you're driving and you just can't do anything with them. And then you go to actually sit down and write and you're like looking at that blank screen. So you can always edit it later, but you can't edit a blank page. So just be willing to get it on paper by finding a way to write regularly, preferably an hour a day. If you can't do an hour every day, well, do it the days you can. If you can't do an hour, then do what you can, and just find a way to build that habit. And it just comes faster and easier, and I think the quality goes up. And I also found I had to, it helped me to set up a dedicated writing space so that you don't waste time organizing it every time. And it also helps you build up that energy of writing, just like if you meditate in the same place, it builds that energy. And then working to find a way to get more reviews, maybe or phone calls or questions, just this plea on Facebook or this vague group email, because the goal is to get 100 reviews within 30 days of publishing. And Lori and I know, and Linda knows too, and Rich, you also, but Lori and I specifically, we were published in a collection book where there were 25 or so authors, and we were kind of, I'll speak for myself, I was kind of shocked of the other authors. I didn't even see a single one review the book themselves. And all the reviews for that book, they came through Lori and I, really working to get people to take a look at it. So that was quite an eye opener, because you would think with 25 authors you could have gotten 100 reviews pretty easily, and it didn't happen. And just the final piece is you've got to believe in yourself and just be kind to yourself and be willing to take the risk and just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
And I would respond to what you just said with self-promotion. That's the difference between you and Lori and the other 25. They didn't promote, and you two did. Y'all worked it. And anything that you do, if you work it and keep working it. And I'd like for Lori now to weigh in also.
Well, everything that Wendy said above, everything, and that book was interesting as well to me, Wendy. You so eloquently said it. I did not understand how come it was just she and I, out of the 20-some authors, working so hard to get that book reviewed. And you know how hard it is just to get your own book reviewed. And then you have to working hard. My advice out there that are contemplating writing, or even if you don't publish, still put it down on paper, because you never know if one day you may publish that. Like Wendy said, when you're in the flow, write. And that's how I am. When I'm in the flow, I write. Write. I could be in the flow a whole day and write a whole ton of stuff in one day, and then the rest of the month not be able to write anything. So I just want to encourage people, to just step out of their comfort zone. Write something down. I mean, I never thought I was going to write, and here I have 5 books. That wasn't my intention when I started, but the stories just keep coming, and I have to put them somewhere, so I might as well put them out to the public. It really opens a person up. You lay your soul bare, because a lot of people write about what is familiar to them, and so you can kind of, when a writer is writing, you can kind of tell, oh, that's familiar to them. That's them. That's how you associate what you associate with them. So, yes, everything Wendy said above, and for me to just tell, advise people, hey, just do it. Just do it. I mean, it's better to live your life and step out of your comfort zone and try something than to never really get it out there ever and have a world of regrets afterwards.
That's just what I was thinking, Lori. It's better to take the risk than to have that regret of, oh my gosh, I should have tried it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, I turn to you, Linda Bove. You have the final word on tonight's show. You get to give the final response. What were your key lessons learned along the way, and what's the best advice you can give to our listeners?
Well, as Wendy and Lori did say, pretty much everything that I believe also is just believe in yourself, believe in your ability to write, and just do it. And even if you got a critic or something that just says, well, this is not my cup of tea or whatever, that's okay, because you're never going to please everyone. It's not possible to please everyone. But if you have something to say and you have something in your heart and you write with your heart, you can't go wrong. And that's all I can say is just do it and believe in yourself. That's
thank
what
you,
I've
Linda
had
Bove.
to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Lori Reagan, and thank you, Wendy Rose Williams. And I want to give Wendy a final moment to plug her new radio show, Soul Wisdom. Tell us about that and where we can find it and when we can listen to it.
Well, I have just been so fortunate, Rich, from the experiences with you and with Jason Havey on Spinning Logic and just other radio programs that I had a chance to be on. That then led me to the Dr. Pat show on KKNW in Seattle, which is Seattle's talk radio program. And I had the great good fortune through friends encouraging me and pushing me to contact her to ask to be on her program. And I honestly didn't know who she was because I was at work. I wasn't listening to daytime radio, and turns out she had the #1 show and has had it for a dozen years. So I contacted her and was very fortunate. Within a couple months I was on her program, and she suggested to me, because she's now mentoring other people to create their own radio program, and she has her own media and production company called Transformation Talk Radio, which just looks at how can we be positive, realistic and factual, but how can we be positive in the areas of spirituality, health, business, whatever it is, to try and change the world and bring some positivity in for all of us. So I created Soul Wisdom Radio with Dr. Pat and her team's able assistance, and it airs live on KKNW in Seattle the first Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific for 1 hour, which is 2 p.m. Eastern. And if people are outside of the Seattle area, you can hear it live via your smartphone or computer just by going to 1150kknw.com. And you'll hear it live that way. And if that time frame just doesn't work for you, you can go to transformationtalkradio.com and hear it as a recording via MP3. Or you can go to my website, which is Wendy, W-E-N-D-Y, RoseWilliams.com, and you can listen to it there.
I want to thank all of our panelists tonight, Wendy Rose Williams, Laurie Reagan, and Linda Bove. And all the listeners out there, remember this show is archived here on www.talkshoe.com under Researcher 135's Community Call. You can download this show, you can share it, and there will be YouTube videos up within the next 24 to 48 hours, which everyone listening and all of our panelists here tonight can also share. So once again, I want to thank everyone and wish everyone a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you so much, Rich. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.